Army is investigating a psychological operations officer, member of the military, who led a group of North Carolinians to the Trump rally that, of course, devolved into a deadly riot in the Capitol building. So this is a PSYOPs officer within the Army. Her name is Captain Emily Rainey. So she's still in active duty. She's gotten in trouble in the past, by the way, for ripping caution tape off of a playground during COVID. Because she doesn't believe in some of the safety measures that are taking place during this pandemic. But she remains defiant in her involvement in organizing this group of people to go to this Trump rally. I want to be clear that she's being investigated. We don't know if she was one of the people who actually went into the Capitol building after it was broken into. But here's what we know so far. She has spoken to the press and she says that she has not done anything wrong and she doesn't seem to have any regrets. She says, I was a private citizen and doing everything right and within my rights. And if you're in the military and you want to be part of a political protest, you can do it as long as you don't go dressed in military gear, as long as you don't present yourself as someone from the military. She also says that her group and most people who travel to Washington are peace-loving, law-abiding people who are doing nothing but demonstrating our First Amendment rights. Rainey said that she led 100 members of Moore County Citizens for Freedom to the Washington rally to, quote, stand against election fraud, which, by the way, has not been proven because there wasn't any election fraud. Dozens and dozens of court battles by the Trump campaign, and they failed to provide a shred of evidence of widespread voter fraud. She also said that she didn't know of anyone who entered the Capitol and that they were headed back to their buses hours before an emergency curfew took effect. The Department of Defense prohibits active duty service members from sponsoring partisan organizations. It is unclear if Rainey's participation in the group went against Department of Defense policy. So far, 90 people, as many as 90 people, there could be more, have been arrested for participating in those riots. But what's really worrying to me is there were members of the military who breached the Capitol. We know that because Capitol Police spoke to Politico and mentioned that it wasn't just members of the military. I'm not just talking about veterans. There were veterans there, but I'm talking about active duty members of the military who were there, along with off-duty police officers who were also there. So that is, it's beyond concerning, right? Especially when you look at some of the video of, some of the Capitol Police officers who are friendly with these rioters and insurrectionists.
Yeah. I'm speechless, but it makes sense, right? Like every time you look at radical movements throughout history, but also around the world, right? The line between the military and the police and what are generally called, when we're using our BBC voices and talking about the third world, are paramilitary groups that absolutely spring off of and are like low key condoned by government to basically do the stuff that like the actual military or actual police departments somehow don't get licensed to do, which is like, really? They get a lot of license. We've all seen them get way too much license. So that's hard to believe. But yeah, I think that there's no question that top to bottom review of both police departments and military, and basically saying, look, they know. It's not like they don't know who the active members of like different militia organizations. Oh, this person belongs to the Oath Keepers, which is actually chock full of former military, a far right militia group. This person's connected to the Proud Boys. They know. The question is, are they turning a blind eye to it, or are they actually rooting it out?
Yeah, and speaking of blind eye, it's well documented that white supremacists have infiltrated our police departments forever, right? And it continues to be a huge problem. And so, when there are these discussions about what the right move is to kind of at least mitigate these types of events from happening in the future, can we just address, what our local police departments are, what kind of people they consist of? Can we actually do decent background checks? It's amazing because you look at and I can only speak for fire departments in California because I have some experience with this because of my partner, my husband for Brett, who thinks it's weird when I say partner. But anyway, the background checks for firefighters is insane. It's out of control. Yeah. Like you have people from the department literally showing up to your building. They interview every single one of your neighbors. They ensure that they're hiring people who have a squeaky clean record. Considering the volume of white supremacists within police departments and policing in general in this country, I would venture to say that they don't do extensive background checks to ensure that they root out people who have these types of dangerous biases against people that they're supposed to be keeping safe.
Right. And of course, we know the history of police unions who consistently refuse any kind of psychological tests on them, which makes no sense because being a cop is a hard job. So you would think you'd want a psychological examination and some assistance if need be. But more broadly, I think the idea that there is a huge crossover between far-right militia groups and the military tells you a lot about the American military. It tells you a lot about the mentality that is fostered in the military. It tells you a lot about what the military generally does around the world. It's like maybe we've spread way too much democracy around the world and we got none left for this country, Actually, what's probably more realistic is that spreading democracy looks a lot like what we saw on Wednesday. Violently occupying places we definitely shouldn't be. So it is a broader culture of militarism that we have to go after. But I also think that militarism ends up psychologically wounding. I mean, it's so ironic that this woman worked in PSYOPs because, look, the whole conspiracy theory around Trump winning the election is just a straight PSYOP operation, just mass delusion orchestrated at the highest levels. But the fact is that military men and women and people who serve are severely damaged, that their suicide rates far outnumber the suicide rates of of civilians and people who did not serve. So all of this Blue Lives Matter BS, can we finally put that to rest? You don't care about cops. You don't care about veterans. You don't. Talk to Bernie Sanders, the guy who's been fighting to, expand veterans benefits for decades. Oh, but he's never said law and order. He never does that. No, because he actually just cares about people. He doesn't care about aggression.
Well, Captain Emily Rainey has resigned from her commission. It doesn't mean that she's no longer in the military. She's still serving in the Army, but she has stepped down from her specific role and she is being investigated. So we'll see how this investigation turns out. But it is kind of terrifying to learn about the pretty high level people who have engaged in not only this destructive ideology, but they've put action behind what they genuinely believe to be true. They genuinely think that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, which of course, no evidence of. And it does show you that people exist in these bubbles where they're, only exposed to certain talking points that are devoid of any type of truth, reality, credibility. But it doesn't matter if all you're hearing over and over again is OAN, pundits, and I'm being very generous and even calling them that, and Fox News people. Well, unfortunately, a lot of these people get persuaded that Donald Trump was the one who was wronged here, even though we had a democratic process and there hasn't been any evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.